Hello, gorgeous Virgos, and welcome to February 2020. I'm going to just put it out there right now, right away, that February is going to have some big impact on Virgos. And, I'm writing this with you. I'm a Virgo moon, so this is a big part of my journey as well. And I think this is a really good thing. And I want you to think about February as a really plastic month. And I mean that as in plasticity, the moldability of stuff, right? In the energetic field, the ability to move pieces around and explore different aspects of self. This month is really working with you in that way. And, that can seem a little intimidating at first to think about letting versions of self die away and embracing surprise and embracing new things. But I think this is, you're also immutable energy. So this is a really powerful time for you. Now, the first thing that comes up for this is the fact that your ruling planet Mercury is retrograde in your opposing sign of Pisces. And we had this transit last year. We had Mercury retrograde in Pisces last February, or last March, actually, I think it was. This year it's in February. It starts pre-shadow on February 1st. It goes retrograde in Pisces on February 17th and retrogrades back into the last degrees of Aquarius until March 10th. And that starts going forward again. But Mercury is basically working in your mirror house, in your oppositional sign of Pisces for 2 months. And this is going to be very revolutionary in the way you relate and the way you connect. And I'm not here to tell you that like all your relationships are going to crumble. But, because Mercury is the sign of communication, and when he's reviewing like this, what we're doing there is we're refining, we're resting, we're taking care of something, we're checking in with something. And here for you is the way you relate, is the way you love, is the way you let love in, which is crucial, right? And doing some workshopping with that. And doing it in kind of a soft feeling emotive space. Not only that, but of course, as Aquarius moves, or the sun moves from Aquarius into Pisces, we're getting more and more into what I've nicknamed it as mirror season, where you're looking at yourself from the oppositional sign, right? There's all this energy opposing your natural energy of Virgo, helping you see the world with a new paradigm, with a new perspective, and helping you reconnect with how you connect to others. And so that's the first thing, right? It's right there that, the way you relate is going through a change. The way you let vulnerability be a part of your life, the way you let others love you is a really huge part of this transit. Cards are flying already. Queen of Cups. Perfect energy for when we're talking about a Mercury retrograde. But there's other things going on as well. Of course, the sun will be moving through your 6th house of Aquarius, having you check in with your routines. What's really working for you? What's really serving you? You also have a full moon in Leo during this time on February 9th, and that's in your 12th house, right? It's in your, it's like in the secret, hidden, most expansive part of yourself, where we get a lot of our esoteric knowledge from ourselves and from our wisdom. So that full moon is quite mysterious for Virgos and can really give you some big watery downloads, right? The kind of wisdom and knowledge that comes in, and it doesn't always just translate to a practical step in the world where you're like, well, I'm just going to make this bold business move. It translates often to messages that are like, rest more, listen in, ease in. That's the kind of watery knowledge that we get. 9 of Cups. I love it. I love these first two because they're very soft and loving. And that's the thing that I want you to get from, these transits are very mysterious, very esoteric, very powerful, very plastic, very moldable, very water, very viscous. But the thing is, they can bring about greater nurturing if you're not fighting the process too much. Judgment. Oh, so good. I think Judgment is one of my favorite cards because it's so much about healing and the freedom from judgment, the freedom from where we've held ourselves captive in a dungeon, not even realizing that we're doing it, right? So this is what I'm saying about these transits. So we have this Mercury retrograde in your 7th house. We have this full moon in your 12th house. We have Mars moving into Capricorn and lighting up your 5th house of your heart. Like the determination and the passion of like what you want to create and who you want to be in the world, Wheel of Fortune, and really grabbing the bull by the horns, right? And we also have Venus moving into Aries this month. Venus moves into Aries on the 7th. And that's an interesting placement as well. It's another water house. It's in your 8th house of transformation. So we have Mercury retrograde going over your relational zone, right? And then we have Venus, the planet of love, in your 8th house of transformation. So you can see how there's like a death and rebirth going on here, a reworking of the way you love and let other people love you. 4 of Swords. That card is really popular this month because it's also, I think Piscean energy especially, is a point for us to stop all the external movement and stop looking for the answers in all that busyness outside of ourselves and to commune with that deeper, richer part of ourselves. The Tower. That's also been a really popular card in February. It's come up for a few people this month, for a few signs this month. And it makes a lot of sense. But I have to like keep reiterating that the Tower works a little different in this era than it has in the past. 2 of Swords. Okay. We have one more card to pull here today. 6 of Pentacles. Greater balance in the whole. Okay, so we have 3 of the most transformational cards that you can get in tarot here in your reading. Judgment, Wheel of Fortune, and the Tower. These are really powerful. And like I was saying, this month is very transformation for you. It's very plastic. It reminds me of like standing on a planet with like a giant ocean that has gigantic waves, right? And at first, if you've ever had like a dream about giant waves in an ocean or something like that, it's like so overpowering and you just feel freaked out and like your sense of like height and proportion is all thrown off and just like, but then you realize you can dive into the wave and under the water there's all this beauty and you're safe, right? It's like dream logic here, but that's a lot of what's coming up for me for Virgos, is that initially you're going to be like, oh my God, these huge insights, these huge waves of release, of connecting with myself. This is way too much. This is really scary. What happens if I let this take me with it? And then you get in there and you realize that all that fear, all that it was all just a mirage, and you're in it and really beautiful things are happening. And I think just that dialogue in and of itself is profound. One of my favorite leaders and thinkers and speakers, Aaron Rose, who you should definitely follow on Instagram if you haven't, because he has such great stuff, has said that we have been trained to avoid our authenticity and to move through the world in the way that we naturally want to move through the world, because we've been conditioned to believe that we will not survive our authenticity, that we will die out, that we will be destroyed by being authentic. And I feel like that's a big part of the release that's coming up here. And if you are in deeper partnership, or you are working through relationship stuff with family, with friends, with partners this month, one of the big things that's coming up is that you've got to let people see your authenticity without all the perfection, without all the productivity, without all that cover story that's supposedly keeping you safe, and trusting that more. And that's what I'm seeing in these cards, because right away, okay, like these are very soft, loving energies. These are the kinds of energies that show up where you are held. There's consistency here. So the water is holding you. If you're laying on your back in the ocean in salt water, you are held, you're not going to sink. You will just float there effortlessly. You're held. And I think there are people and situations that are really there for you, right? These are infusions of deep love. And this is the type of unconditional deep love that exists beyond merit and beyond, oh, you've done your part, so you're worthy of love today, or what have you. This is all about those softer places in our lives. And this is really gentle, nurturing energy. Now, here's the thing. That kind of energy has a tendency to help wash away old walls and wash away old armor. And the thing with Judgment is, it's truly one of my favorite cards to see in a reading, because I think this is work we do throughout our lives. And it does come in waves. The work of the work of letting go of self-judgment, the joy of letting go of self-judgment, the joy of letting go of thought patterns that are self-judgment that we were taught very young. Generationally speaking, as we are moving through these generations of all of us who are alive on the planet now, it's been this slow process, taking away judgment based on class systems that are dying out, survival systems that aren't working anymore. And so a lot of those generational legacies are getting more and more obvious, and we're getting to release them. But the best place to get to release self-judgment is when you're really held and seen by another. And you realize that all these things that you think you have to be doing in order to be loved, in order to be enough, in order to just be here on this planet, taking up space. That's not even a great way to put it, but taking your space in this planet, it gets released. And now this can, like I said, initially be really scary because you feel naked, you feel like you're facing death, you feel like you're facing destruction, but what you're really facing is real freedom. Real authentic freedom, the feeling of freedom from all that heaviness, right? So there's some deep work going on here, Virgo. And like I said, when I looked at your energies and I felt through your energies, I've said, let's face this on head on. That was the first thing I wrote in my notes, because we've got something really profound going on for Virgos this month. And this is about the allowance of love. Now, here's the thing. Your destiny is getting activated here in big ways. And I want to just, before we get into the Tower conversation, we're going to start with Wheel of Fortune. And then I just want to say that revolution isn't always about brimstone and destruction and terror and hostages and, just like a horror film, of you getting through a trial in order to have love and have peace and harmony. I think some of our biggest Tower moments, our biggest striking lightning strike moments come from within and come from really intimate moments with ourselves and with the people that are closest to us, those one-on-one connections where something gets revised. Now, Wheel of Fortune is one of the best energies, right? This is, like I said, destiny activation, where, for me, it's like I think about a clock, or I think about a calendar. You think about the number 10, and you think about the click that happens in a mechanism, right? When it clicks to the next hour, it clicks to the next chapter. I mean, this is very much that. Whatever stories you were telling in those judgment cycles, whoever you were in the past, doesn't matter here. The Wheel of Fortune has no interest in that. The Wheel of Fortune wants you to watch as this landscape unfolds for you and just embrace it. Because here's the thing. Tower, it's always really important to contextualize the Tower in a reading, because the way it comes out really matters. And this is really interesting. The Tower here is surrounded by 2 swords cards, and 2 very restful swords cards that are not about action. They are not about drama. They are not about moving. They are not about fixing. They are about sitting still. The 4 of Swords and the 2 of Swords around the Tower. So this changes the way that the Tower is coming across here, because what this is telling me is this is about the plasticity of your mind and truly the crumbling of a wall that you thought you always needed to have. And this can be very sneaky. A lot of times we've done work, right? We've done work with ourselves on releasing maybe those really big, obvious walls of fear of abandonment or, fear of being subsumed by somebody or controlled by somebody. And we've realized, okay, I had that wall up and I've really let that go. Great, right? That's awesome. So, so powerful and amazing. And congrats to all of you who have connected with those parts of yourself and released it. But we have really sneaky walls that really seem logical to us when we don't really look at them, right? And they have big effects on our lives. And they can be really subtle. Just that feeling of, oh, well, I need to do this much work in the week in order to be loved. Now, initially that'll, you won't hear it that way because you'll be like, no, I'm just being a good person and doing my work. How is that a bad wall? How is that a wall? How is that stopping me from being loved? How is that causing problems in my life? Well, there's that judgment release, right? Realizing that, the thoughts you have about yourself when maybe you don't get as much done in the week, and how maybe you don't feel like you deserve to have that quality time with your loved one or deserve to have that quality time with yourself because you haven't gotten that work done and so you're not really worthy. Those are really subtle walls that when sometimes you pinpoint that self-valuation system and you see it, it will crumble. It will allow those bricks to be removed and that true sovereignty, that true authenticity to come through. And the thing is that you may notice this month that you are forced to hold still long enough to look at those walls. And you may feel powerless. You may feel out of control. You may feel so frustrated that you're having to look at this, or that, you have to go to this uncomfortable place. But that's the beauty of it, in feeling like you don't have to have control over all of this. You're actually ultimately accessing greater balance. And here's what I love about this card. I actually think about this because, this imagery is interesting with the whole aristocrat giving to the poor, right? Especially when we look at the Tower, which is all about the toppling of the aristocracy. But if you want to think about this like your inner dictator dialogue, okay. So in the Tower, this is a situation where the inner dictator has been imprisoning the free-spiritedness, right? And has been hoarding all the goods and has been containing you and keeping you locked in these cycles of I only have value if I push myself this hard, or if I act this way, or if I put on a performance this way, right? Well, in the Six of Pentacles, the inner dictator is being put in a different role, which is one of giving away, opening up, rather than holding on to all of those riches all the time and saying, oh, there's only a limited amount of love in the world. There's only a limited amount of safety in the world. There's only a limited amount of okayness in the world. So I've got to hoard whatever I have, and I have to work really hard, and I have to have structure in order to do that. This repositions that to say there is infinite, and I can show my cards. I can give these treasures out to the people who love me, to the world, and I'm not going to suddenly be destitute. In fact, I'll be richer for it. This is greater harmony. And that's what I'm saying. This month is extremely powerful. Venus in the 8th house, Pisces season with your 7th house activated, your ruling planet going retrograde through all of that, and a full moon in your 12th house. These are very potent reimaginings of how you receive love, how you allow love in, how you allow yourself to share of yourself in your authenticity, and how you start to trust that your authenticity is not going to kill you. Your sharing of your authenticity is not going to destroy you or leave you penniless or destitute. Quite the opposite. Once again, you look at that giant wave and you think, this wave is going to kill me. It's going to destroy me. But when you dive into it, it holds you. And that's the power of this month. But it's going deep. I'm a big fan of like a 5-minute cry a day. I mean, you can't like force that or anything, but it's that kind of work where you gotta like let yourself have those moments of overwhelm. Okay, so I wrote up a whole bunch of words in this little bowl for the month of February, inspiration moments that I feel like, words that came up for me in February. And I'm going to pull one for you and we'll see what it is. Curiosity. Oh, I love that. I love that in the context of doing some of this deeper wall release work, because I think the key to it all is, rather than being like, oh, I've got to do this really intense work. All right, let's buckle up. We're going to go deep down into the cave and this is going to be awful. I don't actually see it that way, because the thing with these cards and the way that everything's come up, this is about freedom, and freedom to be authentic, freedom to be loved, freedom to love, freedom to live in your truth at a really deep level. And that means you're getting curious about the thought patterns you have. That means you're getting curious about where you shut down because you feel you need to hide. It means getting curious about where you are making things harder for yourself when you don't need to. Big fan of Byron Katie's work, excuse me. I don't know why I always say her name reversed. Byron Katie's work is questioning your thoughts. Are they really true? Because a lot of times they seem true and they're not. And so curiosity is about that, curiosity about what happens if I'm living authentically. What happens if I let people love me? What happens if I let myself go for that thing and try? What happens? What happens? What happens? And that is really, I'm so glad that word came out for you all within the context of the power of this month, because it is really profound stuff. And, like I said, I think by the end of this month, you may really realize that this work has done amazing things for you and set you up to really soar into March and forward. Of course, we're still going to be doing this work in March because Mercury is still doing work with Pisces. We're still going to be in mirror season. We'll get into that, Virgo. But the first step here is this February of extreme healing. That's the way I would put it. So be curious. Go explore yourself. Open up. Be curious about how you want to shift things. Be curious about how you want to even shift your day-to-day. And some really beautiful things will come out of it. If you're looking for more resources when it comes to Mercury retrograde and when it comes to the moons and all of that good stuff, you can connect with me on Patreon. I'm creating a lot of extra material over there, including weekly forecasts. So if you're interested in connecting with me, I would love to see you on my Patreon. It helps me out as well. So I'll leave the link below. You can find me on Instagram at SarahVerba. And I also have a handful of sessions in February still left on my calendar for one-on-one Skype or Zoom readings. So if you're looking to work with me, I would love to see you. You can go pop over to my website. I'll also leave that in the description box so you can book with me. And of course, I'm wearing PinkLune's gorgeous jewelry, as always, 100% of the time, every day. She's always making something beautiful, so you can go check her out. Take such good care of yourselves, my lovely Virgos, and we'll be riding this wave right there with you. And I will see you for more of this magic in March.